Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Lindsay. This is my channel, Lindsay Talks a Lot. I am super excited for this video. It's going to be a dystopian reading vlog for 4th of July. I'm kind of basing it off of my domestic thriller video that I did for Valentine's Day back in February. But this one is near and dear to my heart because I grew up reading YA dystopia. That was my bread and butter. That's what originally got me into reading. The Hunger Games was, like, at the time, the most mind-blowing thing I'd ever read in my life, and it just like set me off this track. The Unwind series, Shatter Me series, like I said, the Hunger Games, the Uglies, Matched series, the Fifth Wave, the Darkest Minds. If it was a YA dystopia written between 2009 and 2015, I probably read it. And of course I gave every single one 5 stars. Now if I went back today and read those, I probably would not agree with those ratings, but at the time those books were everything to me, and I just really loved the world of, you know, a young adult finding themselves and, you know, fighting against the major society, the bigger picture, which makes sense because as a teenager, that's the phase in your life when you start to like figure out yourself and you know, kind of challenge authority and try to do things your own way. But anyway, we are doing that, but we are going to do an adult version. So a dystopia is defined as a imagined world in which people live dehumanized, wretched, and fearful lives. There are 5 common themes in dystopian worlds: environmental destruction, governmental control, survival, lack of individualism, and technological control. And most of the books that I've included have some of these aspects, if not all of them. So first up, we have The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This book I've heard about forever and just never had the chance to get into it. And in this intro, I'm not really going to talk a whole lot about the plot of these books because I go way more in depth while I'm reading them. And just so you know, some of these books are going to have spoilers in them, or I may spoil the whole story. So if there's something in particular that you want to read, you might want to skip that section. Next, we have How We Became Wicked by Alexander Yates. Parable Sower by Octavia Butler. And then the 2 that I don't have physical copies of are This Perfect Day by Ira Levin and World War Z by Max Brooks. So that's enough of me talking. Let's get into the vlog portion. Hey guys, so I'm popping in to do my first update of the vlog. I am currently reading The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This book is about a man and his son making the journey through an apocalyptic world where I'm assuming some kind of natural disaster has occurred. The origins of this world are not very clear in the book, but I think that works really well for it. But anyway, this man and his son are somewhere up north, and he knows that they're not going to be able to survive the winter there because they have no permanent shelter. It's cold, it's snowing, it's raining. In this world, I don't know if it's started by like burning down, but there's a lot of ash in the sky. The sun never seems to come out. At night, it is pitch black dark. You can't see anything. And he knows that they need to make this journey to go south so that the weather is warmer. And it's a very rough journey. The weather alone is very difficult for them to navigate through, and they're also dealing with lack of food, lack of shelter. They're dealing with lack of suitable clothing, and you know, along the way they run into problems, they meet bad people, and it's just a really powerful story. Like, the story is just broken up into these small passages describing like what happened one night when they set up at camp, or a length of their journey that they walked down. And it's really powerful. Like, some of the passages in here, like I've already started marking them, just really almost take my breath away. The writing in here is just really well done. There's a lot of words in here that I've never heard before. And for some reason, I thought this book was a lot older than it is. It was published in 2006, which is relatively new for, you know, this well-known type of story, you know, such as like 1984 or Fahrenheit 451. But this is McCarthy's 10th book, so he's been writing for a while. But anyway, I'm just really enjoying the journey. I'm like over halfway now, and I'm liking this book a lot more than I thought I would. Initially, I really wasn't vibing with the writing. Like 15 pages in, I was like, I don't know about this, because it was just very like dry and like plain. He would say things like, we're walking down the road and we have our cart and I'm wrapping up the tarp, and it just felt very dry. And then there's this passage I read, and I feel like the switch just kind of flipped for me. And there's a conversation that him and his son had. A lot of this book is the dialogue of the father, and then interspaced they'll have like him and his son interacting a little bit, but a lot of it is just the father's inner monologue. And it's really interesting to see like what he goes through in his head and the things he debates with. You know, he's worried every step of the way if he's doing the right thing by his son, and he's trying to love his son in the best way that he can, but also keep them safe and keep him protected. And it's just really powerful. Let me read you this passage. It's really simple, but it just really touched me. So they've settled down in their camp for the night, and they're trying to go to sleep, and the son asks him a question. I'm going to blow out the lamp. Is that okay? Yes, that's okay. And then later in the darkness, can I ask you something? Yes, of course you can. What would you do if I died? If you died, I would want to die too. So you could be with me? Yes, so I could be with you. Okay. And I don't know, that conversation, it's in the very beginning of the book, and we really don't know either of them very well, but there was just something about that felt so powerful. And this whole time, I am just rooting for this man and his son, just in hopes that they can find something just a little bit better, just to make this life somewhat worthwhile, you know, so they can be safe for a little while. And I really like the suspense that gets built up in here, because he doesn't really know what lies ahead of their journey. He just knows they need to follow this road and it will take them down south, but they don't know along the way what they're going to encounter. And it's really powerful. It's really suspenseful. I really like the way that it's written. Like there's not even chapters in here. It's just broken sections of paragraphs. And I'm nervous for the ending. I don't know how it's gonna end. It's probably gonna be like not a cliffhanger, but there probably will not be like a full resolution, but I'm gonna read it anyway, and I will update you guys when I finish. So I just finished The Road, and I'm sad. Should I have expected a book about a desolate world to have a good ending? No, probably not. I mean, it was not a bad ending. Like, it was a good ending, but it was not a happy ending. The writing in here is very poetic, and that's like one little thing, especially for like the final pieces of the ending, that kind of dropped this from like a 5-star to a 4.5 for me, is because the ending was just very like poetic in its final verses, and I think I would have liked something a little more straightforward, or like maybe a little more of a conclusion to like what was next, or what the future held for these characters. But all in all, it was a really enjoyable read. Cormac McCarthy is a really good writer. I'm definitely interested to look into his other works. I probably wouldn't read him like back to back though, because like there's just a lot of words in here, and it's, you know, like I said, somewhat like metaphorical and poetic and just a lot to absorb. But there were some really powerful moments in here, which I did mark. And all in all, for a story about a man and his son traveling on a road, it packs a punch. But anyway, on to the next. Hey guys, it's late, so I'm gonna try to make this quick. I want to talk about a book that I have kind of thrown in the mix as like a last minute entry, How We Became Wicked by Alexander Yates. It is a YA dystopian, and I thought, why not go back to my roots, because dystopian was like all that I read in middle school and high school, and that's what got me into reading. Obviously it's not gonna be on the same level as anything else that I'm reading in this vlog, but I thought it would be fun, give me something interesting to talk about. So in this book we have our main character, Astrid, of course, that's her name. And we have our first red flag. I've already marked it on page 12 because she has purple eyes, of course. But anyway, so in this world, there are insects. So there are insects called singers, which are essentially like mosquitoes, but if they drink your blood, they make you go crazy and you just want to like attack and kill everybody in the world, which is fun. So Astrid lives in this small community where they basically live indoors, and if they want to go outside, they have to wear like big hazmat suits that prevent the bugs from attacking them. So you have the true, which are people who have never been bitten by a bug and they stay like safe. You have the vexed, which are people like Astrid who have received a vaccine that makes them immune to the bugs and they basically leave her alone. And then you have the wicked, which are the people who have been bit and they just like go crazy and get killed or they disappeared. So it's been many years since Astrid's like 17. So this has been going on for like 20-30 years, and she really doesn't know anything outside of her life inside this community. I don't even remember what it's called, but you know, she's like a typical teenager, rebellious. You know, she's getting fed up with all these people, and there is a lighthouse across the way on this island called Puffin Island, and for years and years she's always been like, you know, there's something weird about that. I feel like people are living there. And her parents and the other adults in the community have always given like vague, brushing it off answers, and they won't let her leave to try to explore on her own. So one day her and her friend Hank are out exploring, and they run into a person named Erica, and she is not wearing any protective clothing, but the bugs don't seem to bother her. And she tells them that she's from Puffin Island and she has this whole family that she hasn't seen. She definitely seems weird, but she doesn't seem what they would call wicked. They have a phrase that they ask the wicked to determine if they're actually crazy or not. I think you ask them, what do you want? And if they're wicked, they can't help but tell you like, I want to smash your brains in and beat you to a pulp. So they're asking her this, and she seems to be responding okay. But then Hank runs and grabs the adults because they're like, we just found a person and she seems normal. And they end up asking her the question, and somehow that triggers her to answer the question as a wicked, and they end up unaliving her. And that's about as far as I've gotten so far, but I don't think it's gonna be a great read, but I think it's gonna be an entertaining read. And I'm gonna try to tag every time someone's purple eyes are mentioned in this book. But anyway, I'll update you guys in the morning. Hey again. So the last time we talked, I think I had mentioned that Astrid and her friend Hank were living in this community to protect them against the stingers. And they went out exploring and they met another person named Erica. And they meet this woman, they start talking with her. She starts talking about Puffin Island and how people live on there, and that's where her family's from. And she's been living outside the gates at Port Emery. And they go and get Astrid's dad and Hank's dad to come and help them. And they end up killing Erica. So they all go back to the community, and Astrid and her father get there first. Hank's dad tells them, like, hey, I'll take care of Erica, like her body or whatever. You know, just let them know what's going on. And Hank and his father come back, and essentially his father lies to become the chairman of this community and to get Astrid's father exiled for 90 days. Like, he says that Astrid's father basically exposed himself to this woman, and so there's a chance that he could be wicked. So he has to be isolated for 3 months to make sure that he's safe. And Astrid's really furious about this. She's really angry at her father. She doesn't understand how he could let that happen. And she goes with him to this cabin where he has to be isolated, and then she goes and hangs out with her mom. Hank is there. She's super mad at him because she feels so betrayed. But then she finds out that Hank's dad beat him up and threatened him into like not saying anything. So then they decide to team up together and figure out the history of Port Emery because nobody will tell them. Well, it turns out that Astrid's grandfather actually forced the people of Port Emery that used to live there out, and he built his community on top of theirs and like basically threw them to the wolves. On the other side, we get a new viewpoint from Natalie. She is a girl who lives on Puffin Island with her mom, who's pregnant, and her grandfather, who is actually wicked. Her grandfather lives in the lighthouse on the island, and every once in a while he figures out how to turn the light on. And so that's what happened when they saw the light. And Natalie's dad left them because Natalie's mom wants to expose her new baby sibling to the stingers to see if she can be vexed or not. And her dad doesn't agree with that, so he leaves them. So one day Natalie's grandfather turns on the light, and so Natalie's mom and her have to figure out a way to turn it back off. So Natalie lets her grandfather out. He like traipses around the island and she tries to keep him distracted while her mom turns off the light. And her mom gets hurt. They end up getting trapped in the lighthouse together, and her grandfather's just like running rampant across the island, like tearing all their stuff up, looking for weapons, things like that. So Natalie's mom gives birth. She ends up with a baby sister, and Natalie's mom is still injured, so Natalie has to leave the island with her baby sister to get her vexed. And I have been enjoying this storyline more than Astrid's. I think it's more interesting, and I like Natalie as a character. So Natalie goes to take her sister to the island, and she meets a group of people who are essentially like working against the stingers. They are putting up these machines that distribute this like insecticide essentially that repels the stingers, and she ends up getting in cahoots with one of the workers. I mean, she kind of like kidnaps him to take her to the swamp where the stingers are. And that's where I've gotten so far. You know, I actually am liking this. You know, it's definitely a lighter story in comparison to the other dystopians that I'm gonna read. But it's very reminiscent of a YA dystopia where The story is more about the main characters and the ways that they fight the injustices of their world versus the world itself. And there are definitely some dark things that happen in here, but it's not on a deeper level. It's just more in a way that helps support the main characters in their journey to fight for what's right. And it's nice. Like, I feel like I'm stepping back in time a little bit, where I used to just read stories all about this and just dream of being in a crazy world like this and just taking it down, you know, from the inside out. But I am liking it. As you can see, we're definitely adding our collection of purple eye references here. So I would say that's like the biggest downfall, is that the people who are vexed have glowing purple eyes for no good reason. And they also can't dream, which is a side effect of the vex. But anyway, I'm gonna finish this. I'll update you guys and I'll talk to you in a little bit. Hey guys, it's later. I'm about to run some errands, but I finished How We Became Wicked, and I thought I would give you guys an update. I actually ended up really enjoying it. I am gonna spoil the ending though, so if it's something you really wanna read, maybe just skip ahead to the next part. So, last time we talked, Natalie took her baby sister to try to get her bit by the stinger so that she could hopefully become immune to the virus. And she ended up accidentally running into this group of scientists that have been kind of making their way across the country. And Natalie is rightfully very suspicious of these people. They seem nice, but she doesn't want to let her guard down, so shout out to her for that. And she ends up like breaking away from the group and being with this one guy, and she goes through his phone and finds out that they've been doing experiments on people, and like they're really not as good as they say that they are. So she is like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. They help save her baby sister's life, but she doesn't know how to escape from them. Like, they drill a hole in her kayak so she can't go back to the island. And she finds out that her dad somehow got intertwined in this group, and he's one of the people in this group. And they're all, like, none of them are vexed, so they all wear their suits. And she's like, oh my gosh. And he tells her too, he's like, these are not good people. You need to get away, you and your sister. And so then we also have Astrid, whose father's just been kicked out of the community, essentially. You know, he's in quarantine. She's like, you know what, I'm sick of all this. I want to go check out Puffin Island. And she gets Hank to join along with her. They go back into the community. They realize that Hank's dad caught the wicked from that lady who was unalived, and they're spreading it all throughout the community. So all the people in the community are starting to like lose their mind, talk craziness. So they're trying to run out there and escape. And like a lot of crazy stuff goes down. Plot twist, this was in the past, and Astrid and Hank are actually Natalie's parents. What? I definitely should have seen that coming, but it was just like, whoa, no way. So Astrid and Hank escaped with Astrid's mom, who was like already kind of living on the fringes of this society, and Astrid's dad, who got quarantined so that he could, you know, make sure he's safe. Well, her dad ends up like catching the wickedness. He gets bit by the stingers. So he is the grandpa that they have locked up in the lighthouse, because he was going to unalive himself because he didn't want to hurt his family, but they were like, no, we're going to make this work. So crazy. So Natalie's mom, Astrid, ends up coming to the mainland to look for her because they've been gone for a couple days, and they're able to signal that it's not safe. So Natalie's mom, Astrid, ends up tricking the scientist. Instead of going to Puffin Island, they end up going to Gold Sport, which is this community where Astrid used to live. And all of the people who lived there and got turned wicked still lived there. And they were able to get their problem with the scientist taken care of and escape back to their island. And it was really good. Like, I really enjoyed it. I was not expecting that turn of events, but I think everything came together really well and it was conclusive. I thought while reading this, like this kind of book might be a series, but I think it's a good standalone. I probably would give it 4 stars, honestly. And I'm really glad I decided to pick this up. But anyway, not sure what I'm gonna read next, but I will let you guys know soon. Hey friends, so I have another update for you. I have been reading This Perfect Day by Ira Levin. She is the author of Rosemary's Baby, which is a book I was considering for my horror reading vlog, but I just didn't get a chance to get to it. So I thought I could try to include her in something else. So this dystopia is kind of set up like 1984-esque, but in a polar opposite way. So like this world, everything is perfect. Like there's no fighting, there's no inequality. Everybody's the same. Everything is generated and calculated for people. In this world, people are controlled by a computer AI system essentially called Unicomp, and all people are considered family. So they use this term family as like to unite everybody in this world. There are only 4 names that women can have and 4 names that men can have. And this computer system, Unicomp, decides who you marry, it decides what job you have, it decides where you live, when you eat, when you shower. It decides if you can have children or not. It decides everything for you. And people are treated with this medication that essentially makes them compliant. It makes them relaxed. It has like a tranquilizer in it, and it essentially allows this computer to control them. And then they have people that moderate behavior, so they check in, they make sure that people are behaving in the way they're supposed to. And we have our main character, Chip. His real name is Lee, and even names, like he is Lee, and then he has numbers and letters in his name. They call it a number to identify him specifically, but there's nothing unique about his name, about his personality, because that's seen as bad. And so the book is split up into different parts. I've read up to part 3. I'm just starting part 3 now. But part 1, we just kind of get world building. We learn about Chip. His family's very normal, and there's no connections between people either. Like feeling emotions of any kind, of any strength, it's seen as a bad thing, and it's seen as abnormal. But anyway, so Chip has a grandfather named Jan, and like he sees Jan, his grandpa Jan, as like a little bit weird. He seems a little bit more like eccentric and excitable than what he should be. And he really pushes Chip to try to challenge his thinking when he's a little boy. Like he asks him, like, just think about what the world would be like if you got to do a job that you wanted to do instead of a job that they just told you should do. And so this kind of sparks a little bit of individualism in Chip's brain, and he is able to get away with this kind of little rebellion that he has going on with himself for a little while, and then he ends up getting caught, and they fix him, so they just like up his dose of tranquilizers. And with this drug that they give you, like it just makes you paranoid and fearful to go against the majority. So like it just makes you feel wrong, like it's selfish, and that we should be grateful for everything that the uni provides. And it's an interesting world. Like it's not my favorite dystopia setup, but I'm not hating it. So fast forward, Chip is an adult, he's got his job, he ends up coming across a group of people who want to break away from being controlled, like they want their personal freedom. And so they're able to trick the people in charge and the computer system to like reduce these drugs that they get and allow himself to basically like fake as if he's controlled, but really he's free. And it builds up to an extreme. Like he finds books on the histories, and they're trying to find out the truth of the world. And some of the group members are against that. Like they're like, this is the freedom we have. If we push it too far, we can lose everything. And unfortunately, Chip does push things too far, and now the whole group has been reset. And so I haven't seen the repercussions of that yet. I don't know if he's gonna get it back, but it's an interesting book. Like I don't really like Chip, like especially once he gains his more sense of individualism, because he starts to become angry and like have these kind of negative impacts on other people, like things that are just not okay. And I'm sure that's intentional, but I think I need to like think about that a little bit more, because you know, there is some debate that can be said of like a world where everything is perfect and we're taking away certain freedoms to allow for others, versus a world that's dark and brutal and harsh at times for the ability to be able to gain other freedoms. So I'm gonna keep reading. I definitely loved 1984 way more in comparison to this story. We'll see how it goes. I'll update you guys if anything else exciting happens, or if not, I'll just update you when I finish. But I'll see you around. Hey guys, I feel like it's been forever since I did my last update, but I also feel like it has taken me forever to push through This Perfect Day by Ira Levin. This book honestly is a little bit of a slog. Like, it's really hard to read a book when you do not enjoy the main character. I do not like Chip. I can't stand him. He, especially his character now, he has done some things that have pushed past forgivable for me. So the last time we talked, I think I had mentioned, like, you know, Chip was able to miss out on his treatments and he was enjoying this personal freedom in his mind, and he met a group of people and he pushed too hard, messed that up, got everybody like reset, essentially, like everybody back on their treatments, everybody like not forgetting, but becoming repulsed about everything that they've done with their freedom. And it stays that way for a while. And then Chip starts to feel this desire for freedom again, and he remembers the feelings and sensations that he had and the thoughts that he had. And so he figures out a way to miss out on his treatments again, which is very clever. And then he absolutely goes AWOL. He manages to figure out where Lilac is, and she was a person who was in the group of people like missing out on their treatments initially. And he's in love with Lilac. He's obsessed with her. She does not return the sentiment, but that doesn't stop him. So he manages to travel to another continent, find her, kidnap her, assault her, force her into traveling with him, and just does horrible things to her. And it's like he loses this sense of morality the more he gains his personal freedom by fighting Uni and being away from the family. And it just made me so angry, and it made me wonder, like, why? Like, why do you have to be this way? And I was just so mad. So anyway, Chip and Lilac end up kind of like coming together and uniting, and I don't understand how Lilac could forgive him for the things that he did to her, but whatever, she does, and they are able to escape to this island. So Chip discovers that there are islands that are hidden that aren't a part of the Uni's like regular maps, like they've disguised them but they exist, and they have the incurables, or the people who rebel against the uni, who don't get their treatments. That's where they live. And Chip has been warned that they're like feral, they're crazy, they're lawless, but he doesn't care. Like, he's so driven to this life of freedom that he doesn't care what it's like. That's just all he wants. And then they get there and they basically are treated less than dirt. Like, they have basic freedoms of speech, of you know, not being controlled with everything they do, but they're very limited in the jobs they can have. They live in poverty. They still have control over their lives. Like, people are still telling them what they can do, where they can do it, how they can do it. So he's gained some sense of freedom in the fact that he's his own person, but he's also lost something. He's lost privilege, essentially, the privilege to be wealthy, to have a good job, to have like basic necessities in life. Like, he has sacrificed one portion of freedom to be able to gain another portion of freedom. And of course, he's not happy with that either. And so now he is wanting to overthrow uni. He's wanting to break into the museum and destroy all the computers and rebel against the uni. And I'm just wondering, like, to what end? Like, how is this going to be any better? Like, you are essentially destroying one world to bring about a world that is going to be similar to the one that you're living in. And it just might be better for you because you're going to start this rebellion. So you're going to be the one that takes over. Like, you can't win either way. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point that she's trying to make. Like, the story definitely feels more dystopian now because he's living in a world that's harsh. It's cruel. Like, there's a lot of hate in this world, and he's definitely at a disadvantage. But I just don't like his character. And Lilac, like, she's accepted this world they're living in. Like, she just wants to work hard and do the best that she can for their family, and he's not okay with that. And he just can't win. Like, he's not going to be able to win. And it's so frustrating. It is so frustrating. Like, I'm like, what does he think's going to happen? I don't know. But I'm just going to push it through. Like, I'm finally at that 75% mark. I'm on part 4. I don't know. And also, I feel like this book spent way too much time in between, like, when he first got off the treatments and when he was able to escape again. Like, there was just way too much description in here, way too much time spent on like little monotonous things. It feels like now it's starting to feel a lot more like 1984 did when I read it, but it's just taken too long to get there. And I don't know. I really want to look up the reviews and look up what people are saying, see if they feel the same as me, but I'm not trying to read it to myself. So I'm just going to push through. I'll update you guys when I'm done. We'll see. Maybe this ending will lift it up for me. It's going to do one or the other. But anyways, I'll talk to you guys in a bit. So it's later, and I finally finished This Perfect Day. And I think I'm going to give it 3 stars. Where do I begin? So, last I left off, Chip had this big plan where he was going to go back and fight the family, fight Unicomp. No, nothing further than that. Just fight them and hope for the best. So his plan starts to hatch off like pretty successfully. They get all the way to the location of the where the computers would be, and their plan is to blow up the refrigerators that are keeping all these computers cold because they won't be able to function otherwise. And plot twist, someone in their group is actually working for Unicomp, but instead of killing Chip, they end up welcoming him into this programming family. So Unicomp, they say like it's run by computers and computers calculate everything, but really there are people called programmers who control the computers, and they control like the outcomes of everybody that's alive. And of course, like they themselves live lavishly. There's no restrictions on what they eat, what they wear, how they spend their time, how old they are. Like every restriction that they place on the basic human population does not apply to them. And they're like, oh, well, you know, they need this. Like, we have to have this. And we can't help that all these lavish clothing items and food items and decorations existed before the world went to kaput. And, you know, just like typical, the, you know, higher ups are the bad guys. And so Chip, and they all tell them, like, it's okay, like, you'll adapt to this, you'll understand with time. And like, actually one of the founders that the belief system is based on, there's like 4 main people: Way, Marx, and like 2 other people. I don't even remember, but anyway, Way is still alive. He's like almost like 250 years old and he's still alive. And so Chip like essentially convinces all these programmers that he is one of them, until another group attempts to attack on the island, and he's able to take their supplies and attack the computers, and and he kills Way. And he's like, you know what, I just want to go back to the island. I want to, and like when he gets there too, he's like, I want my wife and my kid, like I want to go back to my family. And they're like, no, like you can just stay here with us. So then he escapes the mainland and he like goes back to the island, and he's like, you know, it's gonna suck at first, but it'll be for the best of everything. And what also irritates me is that during this time period where he's staying with the programmers, he's like sleeping with all these women, just doing what he wants, but then he wants to go back to his wife and kid after. I don't think so. So I think like he did redeem himself a little bit by attacking the programmers and like taking down the system, but yet he also didn't want to take the responsibility of trying to incorporate some kind of moral code or moral system to help all these people gain their sense of freedom, but maintain a sense of peace and unification. But I don't know, you know, this was not great, and I felt like the writing was like very dry, over descriptive. Sometimes I'm just like, you know, when you read something and you just don't understand a single thing that you've just read, sometimes I felt like that when she was describing certain scenes. I think the idea and the concept as a base was good, and I liked the world itself, but I just think making Chip unlikable, making him a rapist and a selfish a-hole was not the way to go, and I'm just furious. And I'm also mad at Lilac because she just went along. She's like, oh, you know, you're just coming through your base instincts and it's okay, like we'll be a happy family now. Like, no, that's not okay. That's not a good message, and especially for a book to be written by a woman and to allow that to happen, to write that in your main character with no redemption on the woman's side or no revenge taken against the man who has done something like that. I just don't get it. I'm disappointed. I'm definitely disappointed. This has been the least favorite of all I've read in this vlog. I can talk about another book that I've started though, World War Z. I think it's by Max Brooks. I watched the movie like a million years ago that had Brad Pitt in it, and I don't really remember anything about it except them like literally fighting all the zombies. This book is not quite what I expected it to be. It's like set up like interview style. So the writer of this book, it's like he's talking as if like, you know, all this really happened, and like his introduction or like prologue to the story itself. And he's talking about how he spent all this time traveling the world, getting stories from people for the government to learn like how this started, where the outbreak came from, like how did we get from point A to point B essentially. And so he starts out interviewing these different people from like China, Africa, Europe, all these different countries, and like their own snippets of what happened when things first started. So we have some doctor viewpoints, we have smuggler viewpoints, we have just people who like lived through these scenes. It's interesting so far. I'm curious to how it's going to be like as the story carries on. I think it's going to be more hard hitting if we can focus more on just a few viewpoints instead of a bunch of them. But we'll see. I'll keep you guys posted. I love zombies. Walking Dead. I loved the comic series. I loved the TV show for a while. I stopped watching, at certain points. But I love zombies. I love Dystopia. So we'll see if this can be a redemption for me. Hey guys, quick update. I am DNFing World War Z by Max Brooks. It's not for me. It's not what I'm looking for, especially in this video. The story is told interview style with like a million different people, a paragraph to 2 paragraphs per person with their personal experience in the war. And I'm just not finding a connection with any character, with anything in the world. It's a no-go. And I'm just not finding any connection with any character, any of the world building. There really is no world building. It's just a no. So moving on to Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. I actually have been wanting to read Octavia Butler for a while, Kindred in particular, but that's not gonna fly for this vlog. And for some reason I forgot that I had this. I literally bought this for this vlog, but save their best for last, hopefully. This book like centers around a young girl in the middle of a economic and climate crisis that has led the world, or at least California, to kind of collapse. And I don't really know much more other than that. I'm gonna read and I will let you guys know as I know. And I'm really excited for this one, hoping for good things. Hey again, so unfortunately this is going to be where I'm ending the vlog. I did not get to finish Parable of the Sower, I just ran out of time. I think if I hadn't wasted my time reading World War Z, I probably could have finished it. I am going to continue reading it though. I am really enjoying it. I'm maybe like 25% of the way through. And if I did have a chance to read it for this vlog, I'm pretty sure it would be like the best book that I've read. But I'll update you guys like later in the year at some point, just for a general like how I enjoyed the book and if I'm going to continue with the series, because it is a two book series. But I really hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you were a part of the YA dystopia craze back in the early 2010s. What was your go-to? Like, what was your series? Who was your author? Did you watch any of the movie adaptations? And let me know if you've read any of these books. But I hope you're having a great day. Have a safe and happy 4th of July. And I'll see you next time. Bye.